Hi poetry lovers, welcome to my channel Bella Poetry Presents. Today we will discuss another poet of the Romantic movement, Leigh Hunt. He was called the gentle rebel of Romantic literature. I have a picture of him, but my computer is playing games, so it's very difficult for me to get it. I thought I filled out the ink, and now it says it doesn't have the colorful ink, so it's been a struggle. But here is a portrait, I hope you can make it out, of Leigh Hunt. Very nice looking young man. So Leigh Hunt was born James Henry Leigh Hunt in 1784 in London. He was a poet, he was an essayist, he was a journalist and literary critic who played a vital, though sometimes understated, role in the Romantic movement. While he's not as universally known as some of his contemporaries, his influence on the literary world and on poets who became giants was profound. Now, Hunt's early life was shaped by both intellectual richness and personal hardship. He was born, as I mentioned before, in 1784 in London, into a family marked by displacement and uncertainty. His father, an American-born clergyman loyal to Britain, had fled to England after the American Revolution. This meant that from the very beginning, Hunt grew up in a household touched by loss, instability, and the need to rebuild a new life in a new place. He was educated at Christ Hospital, a charitable school in London, where he developed a love for literature. He had a speech impediment, a stammer, which made him self-conscious and vulnerable among other boys. In a strict boarding school environment, this difference often led to teasing and bullying. These experiences left a lasting mark on him. Instead of hardening him, because sometimes bullying leads to children becoming bullies themselves very often. However, the bullying deepened his sensitivity and compassion, qualities that would later define his personality and his writing. Hunt's first book of poetry, called Juvenilia, that was published in 1801, put him finally on the literary scene at the age of 17 and went to 4 editions in as many years. Through his lifetime, Hunt published more than 50 volumes of prose, poetry, and drama, as well as a huge number of influential articles and miscellaneous essays. Because of his speech difficulties, Hunt was unable to pursue a traditional career path, such as becoming, for example, a clergyman, that would have required strong public speaking skills. This limitation quietly redirected his life towards writing, a field where his voice could be expressed freely and beautifully without interruption. Hunt first gained recognition as a journalist. Along with his brother John, he founded The Examiner, a weekly newspaper known for its bold political opinions. Hunt was fearless in his criticism of the British government and even the monarchy. In March 1812, Leigh Hunt, writing in his radical London newspaper, as I mentioned before, The Examiner, described the Prince Regent, later King George IV, as a violator of his word and a disreputable libertine. After anxious months of waiting, in February 1813, Hunt was convicted of seditious libel and sentenced to 2 years in prison. Rather, and we would think that prison was very harsh on this young man that was so sensitive and so forth, but rather than silencing him, the prison became the unexpected turning point for him. Hunt transformed his cell into a welcoming literary salon, decorating it with books, flowers, and paintings. Friends and fellow writers visited him there, turning his confinement into a place of creative exchange. It was during this time that his reputation as both a writer and a personality grew. Hunt was deeply connected to major figures of the Romantic era. He formed close friendships with poets like John Keats and Percy Shelley. In fact, Hunt played a crucial role in introducing Keats to the literary world, encouraging his work and publishing his poetry. Though some critics later accused Hunt of exerting too much stylistic influence on Keats, his support has undeniably was very important during Keats' earlier career. Hunt's own poetry is often characterized by its warmth, accessibility, and appreciation of everyday beauty. Unlike some romantic poets who sought grandeur or the sublime, Hunt found inspiration in simple pleasures, nature, friendship, domestic life. His tone is conversational, gentle, and optimistic. One of his best-known poems, which we'll read later, was called Abu Ben Adhem, reflects his humanistic values, emphasizing love for one's fellow beings as the highest virtue. Professionally, Hunt wore many hats. He wrote essays, edited journals, published poetry, and collaborated with other writers. Later in life, he traveled to Italy, where he joined Shelley and Lord Byron in an ambitious but ultimately unsuccessful publishing venture called The Liberal. Despite its failure, this period highlights Hunt's continued engagement with leading literary minds of the time. However, Hunt's life was not without a struggle. It was interesting, but it wasn't easy. Financial instability followed him throughout his career. He often relied on the support of friends, including Shelley, and later found himself in difficult circumstance after Shelley died at a very early age. His association with Byron was also complicated. Byron admired Hunt's talent, but sometimes looked down on his social standing, leading to tension between them. On the personal side, Hunt was known for his warm generosity and sociable nature. He was married to Mary Ann Kent, and together they had a large family. Despite frequent financial hardship, their home was often filled with conversation, creativity, and hospitality. Hunt valued relationships deeply, and the sense of human connection is reflected not only in his life, but also in his professional life, but also in his personal life. Leigh Hunt died in 1859, leaving behind a legacy that is less about fame and more about influence. He may not stand in the very center of the Romantic canon, but he was a vital thread to weaving its community together, a supporter, an encourager, and a cultivator of talent. Today, Hunt is remembered not only for his own poetry, but also for the role he played in nurturing, as we mentioned before, voices, greatest voices in English literature, like Keats, Shelley, and Lord Byron. So we said already that he died in 1859, and he died on August 28th in Putney in London, and he was buried in Kensal Green Cemetery. And today we will read two of Hunt's poems, his famous poem, Abu Ben Adhem by Leigh Hunt. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Okay. Awoke one night from a deep dream of peace, and saw within the moonlight in his room, making it rich and like a lily in bloom, an angel writing in a book of gold. Exceeding peace had made Ben Adhem bold, and to the presence in the room he said, "What writest thou?" The vision raised its head, and with a look made of all sweet accord, he answered, "The names of those who love the Lord." And his mind one said, Abu, "Nay, not so," replied the angel. Abu spoke more low, but cheerly still, and said, "I pray thee then, write me as one that loves his fellow man." The angel wrote and vanished. The next night it came again with a great wakening light, and showed the names whom love of God had blessed. And lo, Ben Adhem's name led all the rest. In other words, it's more important to love your fellow man than even God. Or at least it should be on the same level of love. And the second poem I also like very much. It's called A Thought of the Nile. A Thought of the Nile by Leigh Hunt. So I'm trying to put it in the frame. It flows through old hushed Egypt and its sands, like some grave mighty thought threading a dream, and times and things as in that vision seem, keeping along it there eternal stands. Caves, pillars, pyramids, the chaffered bands, the throne through the young world, the glory extreme of high Sesostris and that southern beam, the laughing queen that caught the world's great hands. Then comes a mightier silence, stern and strong, as of a world left empty of its throng, and the void weighs on us, and then we wake, and hear the fruitful stream lapsing along to its villages, and think how we shall take our own calm journey on for human sake. So these are the poems by Leigh Hunt. I hope you enjoyed this segment, you learned something new. Please visit us again, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you can listen to other segments. Also, please remember that we have 64 segments on my channel, and they're divided into 4 themes. The first one is the Victorian female poets of the 19th century. You have to go to the very beginning. If you subscribe for the to the channel, you will find all the segments underneath. And then there is the Best Love Poetry, which is a wonderful, wonderful series of stories about the lives and the poetry of very famous, renowned world poets. And the third series brings us to Russia, and we'll talk about a wonderful silver age of Russia and the wonderful Russian poets. And the last thing, where I kind of bring various poets is called Poetry at Random. So please check them all out. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.